ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यमनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमिड्यं तं रामकृष्णं पुरुषा नमामि. Namaste everyone and welcome to our study of the Bhagavad Gita. We are studying chapter 13, and last week in the last class we digressed a little bit to discuss an important philosophy on which the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is based. It's called the Sankhya philosophy, because these terms will continue to come now. Already has come in the starting verses of the chapter 13. So I thought it was make sense how to understand those categories, or the 24 cosmic principles which constitute the Sankhya structure of how the universe and the world is constituted. So we have the Purusha, which is the consciousness, or the principle of consciousness. Then along with Purusha is Prakriti, which is called nature, made of the three gunas. And out of that three gunatmika nature, Prakriti, the whole world has evolved. Those various categories that are there, right from the cosmic mind, which is called Mahat, Ahamkara, the I sense, Buddhi, Ahamkara, and then we have got these five tanmatras, the subtle elements. We have the five organs of knowledge called the Panch Jnana Indriyas, five instruments of organs of action, Panch Karma Indriyas, and then we have got the Panch Mahabhutas, the five gross elements. In this way, they all add up to 24, and therefore these are called the 24 cosmic principles of Prakriti, or nature. And this whole creation is a result of the Purusha and Prakriti interacting with each other. So within us, there's a consciousness principle, which is the element of the Purusha, and then we have the rest of its Prakriti, including the I sense, ego, the buddhi, the mind, manas, and then the other 20 categories that we have talked about, the five karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, tanmatras, and the panchabhutas, 5 times 4, 24. In an ordinary human being, he or she is not able to differentiate the two. It's all mixed up. The qualities of the Purusha are superimposed on the Prakriti, and the qualities of the Prakriti are superimposed on the Purusha. It is called mutual superimposition. Mutually, I give something to the other person, the other thing gives something to me. So, for example, when I say I'm my age is such and such, actually it's not my age. It's not the age of the Purusha. It is the age of the body. But that's how we say. When you say I know something, actually we do not know. That is a thought or idea that appears in the mind. When you say I'm happy or unhappy, that is a change actually in the Antakarana or the Prakriti. But that element is now superimposed on the Purusha, and the Purusha thinks I'm happy or unhappy, I know, I don't know. So that is how the qualities of Prakriti are covering the Purusha. Really, the Purusha, even though it seems to be covered, it is unaffected by all those things. So this coming together of Purusha and Prakriti is a result what is called ignorance or avidya. And to counter that avidya, we have to bring its opposite, which is called vidya or knowledge. So if there's darkness, you'll bring its opposite element, which is light. And as the light becomes brighter, the darkness fades away, recedes away. The two cannot coexist. So when we are in so much spiritual ignorance about the nature of the Purusha, of myself as an eternal and immortal being, as a being that is of the nature of pure consciousness, ever pure, ever free, Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta. In very simple languages, in the scriptures they say Nitya, it's eternal. Anything in Prakriti is non-eternal. It changes, it comes, it goes. It's in time, space, and causation. Shuddha. Shuddha means absolutely pure. It cannot be defiled, it cannot be made impure in its essence, that is its nature. But Prakriti seems to be, appears to bring about a contamination. Just like in a room, the air is absolutely clean, and then you light a fire and the whole room becomes full of smoke, and you say this room is all smoky. But is that space in the room polluted by the smoke particles that are there permanently? Has that space become really polluted? Well, if you open the window and put the fan on, then all the smoke particles will move away, and the pristine purity of the space is revealed again. Likewise, the pristine purity of the Purusha, my spiritual nature, essence, is ever pure, Nitya Shuddha. But because of the, just like the smoke particles sort of occupied that space and made it appear to be polluted, likewise, the qualities of the Prakriti, made of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, get superimposed on the Purusha and appear to make it covered and polluted. And all the changes that are happening in the physical body, in the mind, seem to corrupt or pollute or make the Purusha impure. So that's where our good karmas and bad karmas, we think when those things happen, then we become, our mind feels impure or pure. Really, they do not touch the Purusha. The Purusha is the real untouchable. But those changes either hide the Purusha more or reveal the Purusha more. Those changes which hide the Purusha more, they are called ignorance or avidya. And those changes that happen in the mind space that reveal the beauty and purity of the Purusha, they are called vidya or jnana. And so, in these verses, a while ago, in the initial, I think from 7 to 12 verses, Sri Krishna talks about those practices called jnana. And the reason he puts and describes that before talking about the nature of the Purusha itself, or the Ch13, is that we need to do some exercises to do the cleansing. A mirror has been polluted with some dust. Something has to be used to remove that dust. And these practices are to be applied in our everyday life. And in that way, the hidden glory of the Atman or Purusha is then revealed. So with that little bit of recap, let us dive back into the teachings that were there, and we were looking at, let me just capture where we were. So we were somewhere around here, 12, yeah. We had gone over this once before, but it's good to always revise this a little bit. So among the teachings that are there to be practiced, and this is what should happen after these classes. You should note down some of these disciplines. It's not always possible to remember all of them and say, which one I will take up as a discipline to apply in the daytime or keep in mind, and which appeals to me. Remember that and try to see the world through the glasses of this spiritual knowledge. What is the instruction? Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam. Nityatvam is steadfastness, always. Not a little bit when you're studying and then you're busy with the world, that spiritual goal, spiritual teachings all disappear. That is not Nityatvam, that is momentary. How we can have some discipline, and that means early in the morning I sit down and meditate on a particular idea. We used to hear one of our very senior Swamis, Swami Turiyananji, who was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He was an adept in yoga. He was a wonderful spiritual practitioner. What he would do, he would take one verse of the Gita and meditate on that the whole day. Now, many people would take a verse of the Gita and look through the meaning and then say, okay, I think I have understood it, whatever it was to be explained. And if I spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, nothing more is coming out of it, even if I persist on that. But imagine somebody with such a wonderful yogic mind and tremendous amount of concentration could still relish and dive deep into that meaning of that one verse for the whole day. So it's about sharpening your mind, wrestling with that. You have to work on that. And in that process, the sharpness of the mind or the intellect increases. Otherwise, with a dull intellect, which is not sharpened through sadhana, you can only get something. It's like seeing something through a magnifying glass. But there's so much more can be seen if you apply more powerful microscopes, magnification 10, 100,000. So it's about developing that capacity. The truth that is there is right in front of us, but it's covered in these names and forms. We have to have that tools, that technology by which that we can penetrate deeper and deeper, just like seeing through a microscope. Nature or whatever is there reveals itself in its increasing clarity. So that actually is the sadhana part of it. And it's not, no matter, you say, look at this way. If you give a microscope, magnifying glass to somebody and say, can you study this? Let that person spend a whole day on that. He might work hard, he will get more and more information, but the quality of the information will not increase unless he develops another tool by which he can have a greater insight. So if you do not do the sadhana and say, let me just read and study, it will be like continuing to use the same magnifying glass without any greater insight into it. Along with the scriptures, study the scriptures, that practice of japa and meditation through which the power of concentration of the mind is developed. That is to be done. And then you reapply that same mind. And after some time you see, wow, there's some new meaning pops up. It's not that this verse has changed. It's just that the instrument which we are using to acquire knowledge has become better. So that's why sadhana is indispensable. But every now and then we apply that and check, am I making any improvement? If new meaning is coming out, new depth is coming in the study, then you know, yes, there's some internal change. What's called chitta shuddhi, purification of the mind, intensification of the energy, greater concentration of the energy. Just like we use a torchlight to focus the light on one point, and the narrower the beam becomes, the further it can illumine in darkness. So as the mental energies are harnessed and become one-pointed, that's called ekagram mana, one-pointed mind. That is the tool that we want to develop through sadhana. So when that capacity is developed, then all the scriptures will reveal the truth. And everything will be a teacher, nature, plants, animals, everywhere, because the truth is there in front, right in front of us. It's just covered by these names and forms. And we are just going around with a naked eye or a magnifying glass, scientists and thinkers. But the Vedic Rishi says, you have to be what is called a Sukshma Darshi Bhi, seer of subtle things. Sukshma means subtle. And because the reality is very, very subtle. So, Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, always be steadfast in the knowledge of the self, not knowledge of the objects out there. So now you're turning the mind inside and say, who is this Nava? Where does this consciousness come from? And if that is not there, then nothing is revealed. Who is the revealer of all these things? And then, Tattva Jnana Artha Darshanam, contemplation on the goal of that knowledge. So that study has got a particular goal. It's not that we are just acquiring that knowledge or collecting that information for the sake of being very, very knowledgeable philosopher. No. Many universities, they have got philosophers. They talk about all these wonderful ideas as if that is the goal, to be more knowledgeable, and then you teach and share that with others. But in spiritual path, it is not about acquiring that knowledge and showing that off. It's about knowing the goal of that knowledge. And what is that? Self-realization. Knowledge is a means to the realization. It itself is not the end. So Sri Ramakrishna gives a very good example. He says, if there's a thorn that has gone into your foot, and I quote that often because it's a good one, then you'll take another thorn to take out the first thorn, and then what you do? Do you keep the second thorn because it was more useful than the first one? No, you throw them both away. So the first thorn is the thorn of ignorance. Second thorn is the thorn of knowledge. Both are activities in the mental space, but the knowledge one helps you to overcome the ignorant. And so once that has been acquired, then you throw them both away. And what remains? What remains is self-knowledge. Then you are one with the bodha. And a person whose buddhi has become merged with bodha or consciousness is Buddha. That means that is the Buddha state, enlightened state, where we are now not like a jiva looking inward, but we are operating from the Purusha principle and see how he is observing and interacting with the world, and all the qualities of that divine omniscience, omnipresence become ours. So, etad jnanam iti proktam. All these practices are called, listed or categorized as jnanam. Proktam means it has said to be or spoken of as, and its opposite, those things that were related to the external world of objects, they are called ajnanam or ignorance. So, then let's go to the next verse. Now he introduces this Ch13 idea, the Purusha idea, the pure consciousness idea. Geyam yat tat pravakshami yat jnatva amritam ashnute. So he says, why should you be interested in this? Knowing the Nava, knowing the Kshetrajna, is a wonderful result. Knowing this, one becomes immortal. So it's a wonderful result and sets some incentive has to be given to the seeker. Otherwise, why would they practice this? Everyone wants to be immortal. In ignorance, people try to make the body immortal. You will see in the Puranas, the Asuras would practice tremendous amount of spiritual discipline, and when the divine form like Vishnu or Lord Brahma would appear in front of them and offer them a boon, they would say, let me be immortal. But their tamasic, ignorant idea of themselves is a body, and then they try to scheme all so many ways by which this body will not be killed. An example like Hiranyakashipu and others like that. So, but or even Ravana. So, but there's always some loophole which is then exploited, because the body can never be there forever. So, yajnatva amritam ashnute. The more we think about this idea of immortality from a spiritual sense view, that idea somehow should capture our interest and attention. Only then it will drag our mind away from this ever-changing external world. Otherwise, they will say it's all right, it's there, but I'm also very well off here right now. I don't really have to make much effort. So, as in the Fiji language, they say, "Subset hai," everything is good. God is there, happy in his own place. I am also happy in my place. When I'm in problem, then I will approach him. Otherwise, it's all good. That type of attitude is not, does not inspire a spiritual seeker to go deep into it. So, Amritam means immortal. One thing is important to understand is immortality is already present as in us, here and now, but not at the physical level, not at the mental level, not at the ego level, at the spiritual level. So attaining immortality doesn't mean, ashnute means to attain, it doesn't mean it's somewhere there like an external thing, I didn't have a car, so I get a car. That is called attaining it, or in a material way. Here it means more of discovering it, realizing it. It is there whether you know it or not. So it's about removing the ignorance relating to the immortality of the spiritual self. And once that is, and how is that done? By the light of spiritual knowledge. And once that is done, then what's no big deal, it was there all the time. I just rediscovered what I had. It was in ignorance that I suffered, thinking that I'm this body and I'm trying to preserve it. I'm this individuality that I'm trying to preserve it. But really, I'm not the wave, I'm the ocean. And in me, all waves arise and disappear. If all of them disappeared, I don't lose anything. If billions appear, I don't gain anything. I am just that one being. That type of wonderful experience. Imagine that a wave suddenly sinks and feels its oneness with the ocean. How deep, how vast. And it looks in there, and all these beings that are there are parts of it. They're playing on itself. He is playing through them. That experience would be something like that of a Brahmagyani. And so an individual will say, why should I function through one limited body which is full of ignorance, which is full of misery, and ultimately goes through a process called death, when I can avail that other state, which is the ocean state, the Brahman state, the consciousness state, where I'm not just there sitting as a witness, but I'm actively involved in the whole play. That is more fun. And the more we think in that way, then the hold of the world on us, its reality, its attractions, and all those things begin to fade away, in the bright light of that knowledge of the higher self. It's like in a dark night, a little lamp is very useful and interesting. Or little stars are attractive. When the moon comes out, then those stars don't look so interesting because the attention goes onto the moon. That is far much more beautiful. But when the sun comes out, even that moon also pales away into insignificance in the bright light of the sun. So this bright light of the sun within us is the knowledge of the Atma. The more we think about it, the more interesting it will become, the more it will arrest our attention, and the mind will begin to engage with that. And then the energy of that consciousness begins to recharge our mind from within and draw our mind up. So it's very important to be always very mindful. What is the direction in which the mind is oriented? If it is oriented towards through the senses to the external world and thinks that this world of names and forms are permanent, are real, then it is under ignorance and will sink into that. But if with the help of the scriptures and our own experiences, we constantly remind ourselves that no matter how real the world seems to be, it is only an illusion. This is only, it's an appearance. It's not the reality. The reality is that illuminator, the pure consciousness. And by force, begin to turn the mind around. In the beginning, it's not easy. You sit down for meditation, the mind wants to run away because it is habituated to run after all those things. That's after many, many lifetimes and many, many years in this lifetime. That's how the mind is trained, and its natural disposition is to run out through the senses. And all the samskaras, memories, they keep on crowding into the mind space and drag the mind out. So in the beginning, meditation is not fun. And the mind, the moment it's so tired and fatigued because it's so busy, the moment you try to calm it down, it says, let me have a rest, and wants to go to sleep. Something like that. So, but that's the only tool that we have. This mind is the means by which we achieve success in the external world. It is also the means by which we achieve success in our spiritual pursuit. We have to befriend this mind, take care of it, make sure it's healthy, don't give it nonsense food, give it healthy food, positive ideas, spiritual food, until it begins to develop a taste and relishes the spiritual side of the spiritual food. That means it loves to sit down and read something, take some spiritual idea and contemplate on it, seek the company of people who discuss these ideas, go to a place where such spiritual food would be available, a temple or a church, a place of worship or something. If nothing is available there, it knows that everything that he seeks is within his own self. So it turns around and tries to dive deeper inside. That type of reorientation of the mind, the U-turn, is the beginning of a spiritual life. So what's the nature of this Brahman? Anadimat. Anadimat param brahma na sat tanna sat uchyate. So he says, I shall speak of that which is to be known. Yat jnatva, by realizing which one attains immortality, amritam ashnute. The Supreme Brahman is without any beginning. So the concept of time does not apply there. There's no beginning, there's no end, there's no present there also. It's beyond all this past, present, and future. It's timeless, it is eternal. Normally, when we think something is eternal, it's like, time is so vast, you keep on going into the future, and there's something billions of years and billions, you keep on adding like endlessness. And same thing looking backwards into the past, like it's a line that is extending forever in both directions. That type of understanding of eternity is not there. This means everything is present in the now. So that idea or that type of experience is called omniscience. A person who is omniscient knows everything here and now. But time itself exists in different planes of consciousness. In this Bhur, Bhuva, Swa, Maha, Jana, Tapas, all these lokas are there. These are different planes of consciousness. How time is experienced on the human plane is different how it's experienced in the Swarga plane, and it's again different how it's experienced by Brahma, and beyond Brahma in the absolute it does not exist. That's why if you read in the Bhagavatam, they give these various huge scales of time, and they say one yuga is 4,320 million years, and 1,000 such sahasra yug parentam, 1,000 such yugas becomes one day of Brahma. So Brahma is a being that occupies a different plane of consciousness. What is a very huge expanse of time, which is 4,320 million years, multiplied by 1,000 of that, sahasra, becomes one day of Brahma. An equivalent would be one night of Brahma. And Brahma has got his life, 1 year would be 365 of his days, and Brahma lives for 100 years. So that's a huge expanse of time. And that whole life of Brahma is one day of Vishnu. So Brahma, Vishnu, and all these beings are occupants of labels of that consciousness at different planes of. And ultimately, in that highest being, everything has become in one. So you'll see when Sri Krishna gives the vision to Arjuna, and he says, look, you can't see me with these gross eyes. I need to give you the divine eyes. And he did that. What he effectively did was he also raised his mind from the physical world. And right in front of him, this Mahavishnu with this Vishwarup Darshan, that form appeared, and Sri Arjuna could see that even before the war had started, the war had already finished. All these great warriors had been killed. Sri Krishna says, Mai eva ete nihita purvameva. By me, Mai eva, verily, ete, these nihita, killed, purvameva, all of them have already been killed. So he saw in that higher plane, things had already happened. But when he comes back to this lower plane, things have not happened yet. They're still to happen. This gives you some nice insight about time and space, what's happening. So it's not that only things are rolling here at our physical level. Things are also happening in other planes, and they're not happening at the same time in the same way. It is like a movie that has been recorded. Or that movie runs at a higher speed, at a higher plane. And if you rise up there, then you will see certain scenes. But when you come down to this normal, our plane, those scenes have not appeared, and things are still rolling. Those people who can raise their mind to those levels would experience certain things that have not happened here. But when they come back, they can report and say, oh, I saw this, I saw that. Sometimes it happens by accident, or they have those qualities there, like Nostradamus had that. Psychics have that sometimes. Some prophets have that. They can go into that higher plane, and then they come back and report and say, okay, this is what I saw there. Sometimes what they see there, they have difficulty in explaining, because those type of technology and concepts have not evolved, like if they see a nuclear bomb or something in that high state, but it had not appeared here. So they will try to explain in different ways by hints. That's why you see the messages are very, very cryptic and difficult to understand. But this concept of time varying at different planes is very, very interesting. And when the mind scales to these higher planes, it can have those experiences. When it comes down, they have not happened. So you see in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, he would say that I will come once more. I'll be born in 100 or 200 years, he said, in a particular direction. And he told various things about how he will be born. He will be born as a bowl, and those various people who were his spiritual companions in this incarnation would accompany him, and all that, because those things have already happened in another plane, but not in our human plane. So even that type of inquiry I just mentioned in a little bit more detail might interest somebody and say, hey, let me do my concentration and meditation, let me pierce and go beyond these little limitations of time and space where we are really bound today. We do not know what's going to happen in the next second, next minute, next hour, next day. That's how tightly we are bound in the present. Future is all a probability. And the past has become a memory. If you remember them, it's there. If you lose your mind or have dementia, then everything has disappeared. All that we experience is this little small interval which we call the present, and everything is being swallowed in this great time. So this being cannot be either called Sat nor Asat. Sat means it exists, Asat means it does not exist in relation to normally things objective all out there. There's a cow that exists, the cow dies, it does not exist. So that type. But Brahman cannot be talked about in an objective way as an object, because it is the eternal subject. So the qualities of the objective world cannot be superimposed on this. Now we go through a series of verses, 13 to 18, I think, where the various qualities or the properties, characteristics of the Supreme Being's presence is told. The Supreme Reality is transcendental. That means it is nameless, formless, timeless, attributeless, conceptless. At the same time, it is full of those qualities also. That means it's hidden, but it's also, you can see its presence in various things around us. So how do we discern and be aware of the presence of this Brahman in things that we are dealing with every day? People, work, ourselves, everything is there. All these things are experiences. We think these are not Brahman, but Brahman, or the Supreme Consciousness, verily shines through all of them here and now, every moment in everyone's experiences. If we see only the external form, then we miss the thing. But if we penetrate through the form with the help of these type of teachings, then we will see that presence there all the time. So the divine is very good. Like I said, we were studying these other classes on Kashmir Shaivism. Is very good in playing hide and seek. It hides, is the formless one that hides himself behind the forms. If you are a good seeker, then he is good at hiding and we are supposed to be doing the seeking. Okay, this is the game he plays with himself. Not with somebody else. He's playing with himself only. We are parts of him only that we do not know, but he knows. So this game of hide and seek is going on. He's the one hiding, we are the one seeking. And if we are not seeking, then we only get the hiding. So, Sarvata Pani Padam Tat. Pani Padam, hands and feet. Sarvata, everywhere. That means all hands and feet, or through the activities of all hands and feet, that divine actually is working. The hands, if they don't move, feet, if they don't move, they are not doing their functions. Therefore, they cannot be even called a hand and feet, because they don't serve that function. So a dead man is there, he's got hands and feet, but they're not really worthwhile calling hands or feet, unless there is that consciousness inside them that makes the hands move, feet move. So likewise, everywhere in human beings, plants, animals, everywhere, wherever you see, it's the divine that is working through them. The quality here that is being talked about is the omnipresence. He is present in everything. Omni means everywhere, presence means presence, So how do we see his presence? Well, his hands and feet are moving. That means there's a life force. And then we know he is there. For example, if somebody is alive or dead, you ask the doctor, he will come and check. If he sees the person moving, he says, already I know he's alive. But when he comes closer and he checks the heartbeat and breathing and temperature and all of those, nothing of those are working, then he said, oh, he has gone. Chal basa hai. So that means he infers the presence of the consciousness of the jivatma, by the various activities that are of the karma indriyas and the jnana indriyas. We talked about this 10 these indriyas, organs of knowledge, organs of action. If they are active, it indicates the consciousness, the kshetrajna is working through the kshetra. So it's simple as that. Sarvata pani padam tat, sarvata akshi shiro mukham. Sarvata means everywhere, akshi means eyes. So he sees through all eyes, not only one eye. Shira has things through all heads, eats through all mouths, mukham. Sarvata shruti malloke. Sarvata means listens through all ears, shruti. And in this world, loke, sarvam, everything, avritya. Avritya means pervading, tisthati, it exists or abides. So it is like the omnipresent consciousness through everything that makes the world beings conscious. So Sri Ramakrishna says, the world is conscious on account of the consciousness, on account of the presence of the consciousness of the divine. So everything that is happening in our own life, I'm talking, explaining, you're listening, understanding, you're seeing, hearing, all that is possible because of that presence of that spiritual consciousness, which belongs to the kshetrajna, the spiritual self. How do we keep that in mind and do not say, I'm seeing it, I'm doing, I'm listening, I'm hearing. You appropriate all those activities to the ego. That I sense, I'm the doer, I'm the enjoyer is what is called ignorance. I'm an instrument through which, means this body and mind and everything is an instrument through which the indwelling antaryami consciousness or the divine is carrying out all these various activities. That is knowledge. How do we now put the ego in its right place, so to say, not the master and sitting on the throne saying, I'm the boss. Really, he is not the king. He is only a servant. That's the situation where the ego has done a military coup type thing, taken out the king and taken its place up. And now we are all suffering under the dictator of the ego. So, what would be the spiritual discipline? Well, it's about trying to see the functioning, the presence of the infinite consciousness through the functioning of all the jnana indriyas and karma indriyas. That is what this verse would be talking about. That was more about the karma indriyas. This is more about jnana indriyas. Sarve indriya gunabhasam, sarve indriya vivarjitam. Sarva means, this word sarva against means everywhere or everything or all. Sarve indriya. Indriyas are these 5 senses, panchindriyas. Gunabhasam. Abhasam. Abhasam means shines through the functions of all the 5 sense organs. So shining through the functions of all the organs. The eyes don't see by themselves. One can have a perfectly good eye, but he can be blind. Or if that attention is not focused through that eye, the eyes are looking there with an emptiness, not noticing anything. It is when that power of consciousness in a focused way flows throughout the instrument of the eye and captures the light energy that is coming from outside to it, that's when we are able to see something. So the eyes don't see. Actually, the seeing is something happening inside. Okay, sometimes we see things physically, sometimes we see things mentally. When you're trying to understand an idea, sometimes people you say, you see, and that person say, I see, means I get it. I'm observing that thought in my mind, and I can make some sense out of it. It is in its proper place, and I say, I get it, I see it, the penny drops. But that also is not seen. There is a seer behind that. And that seer is the light of consciousness. In all these ways, we are trying to educate ourselves about the presence of that divine consciousness in us. And that it is the most primary element. Others are secondary and tertiary in the sense they are the outcomes, the lower forms. The consciousness is that source. And that infinite consciousness that is inside is called the Jivatman, and that which is the universal consciousness is called Brahman. What's the definition of Brahman in the Brahma Sutra? That consciousness out of which all names and forms, universes and living beings have come, by whom they are all sustained, to whom they all return. That eternal universal ocean of consciousness is Brahman. So we are waves in that ocean, and whatever happens on the waves happens because of the energy and the power of the ocean. The waves cannot exist without the ocean. In that way, the Jivatma cannot exist without the presence of the Paramatma. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam. So we see all the functions are functioning, senses are functioning, and we infer the presence of this seer. But the question then is, do the senses limit him? That means if the senses are not there, does that mean he also has become a zero? The answer is no. Sarve Indriya Vivarjitam. That means it itself does not have eyes, but sees through the eyes. It does not have ears, it's beyond the ears, so to say, but it functions through the ears. Vivarjitam, it itself is devoid of all senses. You might ask why it doesn't have ears, eyes, nose, and all those things. Well, he doesn't need one. Those who are caught in the body level need all this instrument to operate in the physical body. At the higher level, you have the higher psychic powers that are there in the subtle body. You can see through them, you can hear through them. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and all those are spiritual psychic powers that goes awaken in a person. They don't belong to the physical body. They are those who have had outer body experience, for that matter, for example, and many people have had, and you can have one also. If you want to have one, I can teach you also to have that. OBEs is not very difficult, but at least you can get out of the body and look at your body from outside. It happens many times. You read, if you go into a little bit of research on the internet and say OBE, outer body experience, NDE, near-death experiences, you'll find so many well-documented cases. And it happens sometimes when people are on an operating theater, they are under some anesthesia, the doctors are operating, and that person suddenly finds himself, even though his body is anesthetized there, that means his eyes can't see, his ears can't hear, they have stopped functioning. But that person finds himself or herself up there looking down at the surgery that is happening, and the doctors are there, and whatever the doctors are talking, they can hear. What they're doing, he can or she can see. Now you might ask, his eyes are down there. Whose eyes is this person using to see? If it's physical ears are there embedded in the body and they're not functioning, whose ears is this person? The new eye is also, and he remembers everything. So there's a mind there. When he comes back later on and he wakes up out of that after the surgery and tells the doctors, this is what I saw. You people are discussing this. I saw these things. Very, very accurate. So that means there is another dimension of us that can be detached from the body, and it can work independent of these sense organs. While inside, it works through them, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, and when it's looking from outside, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. but it can also go beyond that. It's very interesting insights you get in here. So, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. In this verse, we are talking about the activities of the senses, Jnanindriyas, how they function because of the presence of the consciousness, and they stop functioning when the consciousness disconnects. Asaktam. Asaktam means it is unattached. So it's otherwise, if it was totally attached, it would not be able to separate itself. So it has the capacity to detach itself. Asaktam sarvabhritchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. So here, in this second line of this verse, are talked about the three functions of creation, preservation, and withdrawal, or supporting. So let's have a look. Sarva Bhritchaiva. Sarva means everything. Bhrit means asakta is the enjoyer and the experiencer of the gunas. So three gunas are there, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They make this whole external world, plants, animal, food, things that we eat. And basically the gunas, the purusha that is inside us, that light of consciousness goes out and enjoys these gunas in various forms as objects of enjoyment. So nirgunam, it is without any qualities. Sattva, rajas, and tamas that we studied in the Sankhya philosophy belong to Prakriti. They don't belong to Purusha. The Purusha is called Nirguna, without any qualities, Nirgunam. And at the same time, the whole universe, right from the world of Brahma to this world that we see, are made of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, in different combinations and permutations. So the Purusha, which is Nirguna, enjoys the three gunas. And it could be something very, very material, like a cow eating some green grass and enjoying that, or a human being enjoying things that we are all familiar with, or some gods are enjoying the pleasures of the heaven, or even Lord Brahma is there enjoying something, but he is also within this Prakriti. The real bliss, unadulterated bliss, unchanging, is that of the Purusha. But the Purusha is not aware of itself, so he is trying to see his reflection in the mirror of the Prakriti. And what does Prakriti do? She gives him some idea what he is looking like, but she hides him and distorts him, and he gets a very poor reflection. That reflection could be, I'm a stone, I'm a plant, I'm an animal, I'm a human being, I'm a god, I'm the divine Lord Brahma. They are different reflections depending on the purity of the mirror in which he is seeing. It also does something. It flips over the right to the left also. So in that situation, there's a definition of ignorance in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, avidya. What is avidya? It's a sense of asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Asmita is the sense of I. That means the infinite one suddenly has become identified with the limited thing. The infinite ocean has become identified with the limited wave. Asmita. Raga. Raga means attachment or desire for things. So it has forgotten about its own glory and its own purity and its purnatvam. I am complete. And he feels incomplete, so he wants to run after something and thinking that if I get that, I will become complete. So it's trying to regain his fullness, but in a wrong way, in a material way. Dvesha, certain things hide its inner bliss, and he wants to avoid them. He hates them. Aversion. Abhinivesha is this effort to maintain and keep this body, attachment to this body, thinking I am this body, and therefore its preservation is my preservation. So these all come from ignorance, avidya. Avidya is the root cause. It ends with asmita, I sense, raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes. Abhinivesha is this intense attachment to the body. And you'll see, think deeply, how much of our time and energy goes basically trying to make that happen. All our agriculture, all our medicine, all our housing, all various ways are there just to ensure that this body has got a proper food, clothing, shelter, and remains. At the same time, no matter how much we try, how long you try, no one has ever in this whole universe been able to make that body live forever. By its nature, you can extend it to some extent, but eventually it will disintegrate. But it is a means to an end. And if you work on the end, make the best use of what is available in this lifetime. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhritchaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Shining through the functions of all the organs, yet devoid of all organs. Unattached and verily the supporter of all, without the gunas, and yet the passiva or the enjoyer of the gunas. So these are some of the qualities of the Ch13, the consciousness, which is a spark or part of the Supreme Being, Purush, Paramatma. So we started this chapter trying to explain the external world, the lower evolutes of Prakriti. They're called evolutes because they evolve from the subtler causes and become more and more gross, like out of water vapor, water comes, out of water, ice comes, and then it dissolves into water and evaporates into water vapor. That is how the world has been projected, stays there, and then it dissolves into itself. So, and along as the evolution happens, the consciousness goes out and gets attached at different levels. So that's how the jivahood comes and becomes entangled with this body-mind complex. That's the prison house. Then the next verse 15 talks about the all-pervasiveness of the Supreme. So, Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha. Bahir antar. Bahir means outside, external to me, existing outside. Anta means inside. Bhutanam, in all beings. So that when we, for example, talk about ourselves, then we say, I exist inside this body. I don't exist outside the body. That is the situation of a jiva. His sense of his existence is now totally limited by the boundaries of this body-mind complex. This is me. This is my identity. And it's a very physical type of identity defined by color, gender, qualities or experiences or knowledge of the mind, all those things. But everything is in this little capsule or this cocoon that we have built like a silkworm. But that cannot be applied to the pure consciousness or the Supreme Being or Kshetrajna. It is unlimited. Actually, it works without any boundaries. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha. Chara means move. Achara means non-moving. So there are, and chara means that which are moving. So the idea is it is moving and non-moving as well. It is omnipresent in all things. Why don't we see him? Why don't we experience him? The reason is it's extremely subtle. Sukshmatvat. Sukshmatvat means due to its intrinsic subtleness. So I can see ice, I can hold the water, but the same substance, when it vaporizes, the water molecules are all there, but they have become so sukshma that we are not able to see. It might require some other more powerful instruments to enhance the power of our senses and bring that into our observation. And as science and technology is evolving, we are able to perceive things that were sort of unknown, unseeable in the past. If this virus had come, coronavirus had come 1 century before, it would have wiped away most of humanity because we didn't have the technology which the modern day scientists had to perceive that, to study that, to find out how it works and to develop an antibody and what you call vaccine. That little virus, invisible disease is killing everyone. Imagine how people would have reacted to it. Something is there, it's killing everyone. We can't see things, full of fear and all that would be there. But because we have developed that technology, we could observe them in the laboratory, see how they function, and with that knowledge, we're able to develop these vaccines, and that's how we live. But there are certain things that are even beyond this, the reach of the senses, no matter how powerful these instruments that we develop. And the Vedic Rishi says, well, one way of discovering knowledge is to build all this technology, which is how the Western world has taken up. And the other one is to develop this in a powerful telescope or microscope by developing the concentration of the mind. And then you apply that powerful mind. And even in those days, they had all these wonderful sciences of astronomy and everything. They knew where the planets and everything was there. How did they do it? Did they have all these powerful telescopes? No, the telescope was their own mind, and they could see or perceive even further than what the modern day scientists are able to say. That inner development, the technology, harnessing the power of the mind, increasing its power of concentration, is what Raj Yoga, or the science of meditation, is all about. So, Sukshmatvat Avijnayam. Avijnayam means it is incomprehensible. To whom? To the ignorant people who are operating through the naked eye, so to say. And those who have developed the right technology, they can see the fine things. To them, it is not Sukshmatva, means beyond the reach. But it itself is very, very subtle. So no one should come and say, oh, show me God. Okay. Arjuna asked him to, or Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna said, it's not a physical thing that you can see, but I will give you the divine and divya chakshu, the subtle perception. And through that you can see. Sukshmatvat avijnayam. And then, where is it? Durastham cha antike chatat. Durastham, it is thita, far away. And antike, very nearby. So this idea of far and near are just related from the perspective of where we are located. Okay, we are having ourselves as a reference, and the distance talks about far away. So if there are 10 people, 2 people standing 10 kilometers aside, each one will say, you are far away from me. And those are within a near distance, these are near to me. It's about the particular reference, our perspective. All our perspectives are from a particular reference, and most of the time we don't try to see things from other people's perspective, thinking that my reference is alone right. And that's why a lot of arguments and fighting of ideas and things happen, not being able to appreciate that there can be many, many perspectives from different points of references, but none of them are right 100%. They're all relative to one another. So, Bhairantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha sukshmatvat avijnayam durastham cha antike chatat. So that being is existing outside and inside of all beings, is moving as well as not moving. It is incomprehensible due to its subtleness. So also it is far away and yet near. When we see things or perceive things through our physical eyes, and even the mind, we always have to understand and remind ourselves that these are appearances of the reality. They are not the reality itself. The appearances appear and disappear. The reality is something that's hiding behind that. And therefore, one should not get too much carried away and say, my appearance is better than your appearance. My view is better than your view. Your view depends on where you're standing. Another person's view is depending where he's understanding. Some is according to cultural difference or education or experience or even a physical location. All those things happen in a relative world. They are only views. We take in some energy. They make some change in our mind space. We observe those forms there when we think mine is the right one. Really, none of us are 100% right. In that sense, they're all only relative. But the reality transcends all these perceptions. Anything that happens in the mind space, anything that is perceived through the senses, they are only a representation. There's a beautiful lecture of Swami Vivekananda one existence appearing as many, and there's another one called the real and the apparent man. The real man is the Ch13, the apparent man is this individual, the personality, the I and my, the one that has got this big CV and biodata. That is only the apparent man. The real man is the Kshetrajna. The apparent one is the Kshetra. So we are introducing suppose somebody is reading the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, they are being introduced to something new. They see the source of consciousness, introducing a new element in their own knowledge of themselves, making their understanding of themselves more complete. And in relation to their pre-existing knowledge about the individuality and personality and this body-mind complex, a far superior being is posited now, saying that being is far transcendental and beyond all the limitations that we are experiencing in this body-mind consciousness, body-mind and complex, and that being is our true nature, not this what we consider ourselves to be. So the gist of these last 3-4 verses is about trying to awaken in our mind a presence and understanding. It's not that we'll understand that, but we infer that something is there far superior to it, and it is making all these things happen in this world around us, within me and outside me, through thoughts, words, and deeds. Yet it is something so subtle that I am not familiar with them, and I would like to get to know that. And that would be the starting point. If that is my true nature, if it's so wonderful, if I'm an eternal being, I'm immortal, I'm absolutely pure, I'm the source of all bliss, purity, goodness, strength, fearlessness, all those things that are. And then why should I continue to live in this, under this ignorance of this jivahood, which has got all these shortcomings that are there? And the more you think about the wonderful glory and the purity of the Atman, at some point it will get hold of you and say, pay attention to me, take some interest in me, I'm the real McCoy. Don't go after these names and forms. And the more you churn those ideas in your mind, you chew them, you digest them, you absorb them, you let them run in your blood, and out of your being you will fabricate a new body, a new thought pattern, a new structure, which will be geared towards the discovery. And at some point the mind says, this is the main work for which I have been coming again and again through many, many lifetimes. And I've been putting it off here and there, now and then, thinking, justifying my external engagements as important, responsibilities, duties, and this and that. The real duty is this duty to ourselves to discover who we are. And if we don't do that, then life is very, very pitiable. We come, we suffer, we live so long, we don't make any progress or much progress, and we leave this world not any better than where we entered into this world. That is not a desirable outcome of a life. Good life is one where we have the compass of our north pointing to the ideal of the self-realization and constant effort in the midst of our various activities and duties. Some part of the mind and time is necessary to secure some food, clothing, shelter, but you don't have to overdo it. And a significant part, if we can give to this internal pursuit where the real happiness, beauty, purity, goodness is there, then we would have done a good service to ourselves. And if we leave this world having made some progress, we can pat ourselves on the back and say that was a good life. And if not, then it will not be a very good departure, because everything is demonetized when we live in this world here. So okay, so we have gone up to verse 16, I think another 2, and then we go deeper into the sadhana part of it. I have uploaded a very nice chanting of the Bhagavad Gita in the group Gita group discussion, so you can download that, put on the phone, listen to it on the way to work and back, and let it sink in. These are Shrutis. The more you listen, it will settle in there with the beautiful music to that. And then the more we plant those ideas, those energies into our head, in our hearts, it at some point will begin to do its work from within and make us respond to this call of for which we are all being born in this world for so many times. Okay, I think we have covered our 1 hour and a little bit more. Let's offer this to the divine. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaste everyone. See you next week.